My name is Marcia White. I'm technically employed with Impact Community Action, and I've been on loan to the Franklin County Office of Justice and Policy Programs for the past 5 years.
Wow.
So I've worked at Impact Community Action as a family development specialist and a case manager, and I was doing part-time evening work as really a case manager with the Pathway program with Franklin County in the evenings. And then Jackie, you said something that sparked a memory for me when you said you should interview your employer. So I had a conversation with Melissa Pearson, who is was at that time, she was the CEO of Pathways program. And I was interviewing her because my loyalty was to Impact Community Action. They hired me at a really low time in my life. And so I did not want to leave Impact to go to work with Franklin County. So we worked out this deal that I could be in both places with both agencies. But my greatest love is providing peer support. And I didn't know that I was doing peer support like for 10 years before I stumbled onto the term peer support. So let me go back. So that's who I am and what I'm doing right now. I facilitate groups inside the Franklin County Jail with women who are in active addiction from opiates. And when they come home into the community, we continue to wrap the peer support around them in reconciling relationships with their families, with their children, with themselves. I use a curriculum called Love Notes, The Art of Loving Well, that teaches how to begin having a healthy relationship with yourself, because if you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself, it is impossible to have a healthy relationship with anyone else. And so the reconciliation with and forgiveness that we are able to help them see and have for themselves. So that's what I do with Pathways, help them get linked with training opportunities, employment opportunities. I have several, the long haul. So I have ladies that have been on my caseload for the past 3 years, and they're just making me have to discharge them. So I tell them, because the program ends, doesn't mean the relationship ends. I am always a phone call away. I just don't have to do case management with you anymore. But if you need something, my number has not changed in the last 18 years. So everybody I've ever worked with has contact with me, can have consistent contact with me. So that's what I'm doing now. But what propelled me into the work of service and as a community servant was being a survivor of domestic violence. When I was in my early 20s, on my second marriage and my second child, I was in a very violent marriage. And 8 years into the marriage, I shot and killed my husband in our home with our children upstairs listening. That spiraled me into my addiction after his death. So the whole time he was alive and I was living in hiding, the Columbus Dispatch did several interviews with me about comparing my story to like the Underground Railroad, because every time he would find us, a member of our family or a member of our village, our community, would hide my children and myself in their attics or basements or anywhere, to keep us safe. And then he would find us, and then we'd have to do that. We did that for 3 years, living off the kindness of strangers. So the morning that he kicked in my door to my home with the intent, and he had told me for years that he was going to kill our children, that he was going to kill me, that he was going to kill himself. And that particular morning, when he kicked in the door and he was heavily armed, I knew that was his intent that day. He had given me a weapon on my 21st birthday, and that was the weapon that I used and shot and killed him in my living room. I was never charged with his death. It was deemed a justifiable homicide. I did go before the grand jury, so the miracle in that happened in 1983. So I was 27 years old. Now I'm 67 years old. But I heard you say some of the traumas that you experienced never go away. So that's always in my memory. That's always in my mind. And it's a conversation, it's a legacy, if you will, in our family. So it's something that I have to talk about with my children, I have daughters, 2 daughters that are 50, one that is 45, and one son that is 40. And by the grace and the mercy of God, they are all healthy, whole, happy human beings. My daughters are teachers, educators. One's a librarian, one has her own school. My son runs, I don't know if you guys know about the Building Futures, Driving Futures, Building Back Better Together, and Franklin County Futures, all of those future programs. Well, he's the director over all of those programs. So he is healthy, happy, whole, irregardless of the, what statistics said would happen with them coming out of a home where there was extreme violence, homicide, my addiction. There's nothing that statistics said they would be. So I knew that if that was true for my family, it can be true for anyone's family with the right supports in place. And so what was freely given to me, I wanted to be in a position to freely give that to other people. So when I say I was doing peer support, before I found that term, like, okay, that's what I am doing. Because I worked with young people whose parents were in active addiction. So I knew the only way to really help them was to help their parents. And so I started behind the scenes, wasn't part of my job, but the only way I could make sure that they were safe was to make sure their household was stable. So I went in and started working with the families on recovery and how to live sober, and didn't know it was peer support. So I love what I do as a servant. I love it. I love every opportunity to teach compassion and kindness and love and mercy and grace by example. So the long haul, I had a struggle with Franklin County because I interviewed them, because I know what I have to give is valuable. I know it is. And so I wanted to make sure that they would give me the freedom to work. Because there's a certain way people want you to come in and do things their way. Franklin County was not of that mindset. They sort of gave me an opportunity to tell them what a peer support program in the community would look like. Because when I started, we only were doing it inside the jail. And so Valerie and I, we were tag teaming, we were partners at that time. We worked the community program on the weekends. So we were the weekend staff. So, is that enough? I mean, I could go on and on, but I'm going to stop. And if you have any questions
we're gonna ask more questions as soon as you guys go through.
Pardon me?
If there's gonna be, I think there's gonna be time
Yes.
for us, the group out here, to ask you questions.
Okay, that would be great.
Yes, so we can go to the next person.